Hey everyone, welcome back to Immediate Movie Reactions. I am here after seeing Dune 2, the second part of Denis Villeneuve's Dune retelling, the adaptation of the Frank Herbert novel. Probably the most faithful adaptation, except for perhaps the travesty that is the director's cut of the first film. Though that was awful. And I think that we see, actually, unfortunately, some of the elements of that reflected in this film. In full transparency, I am past my 5-minute window. I have recorded this probably a dozen or more times. I lost a recording. I was interrupted in another one. I went into the movie with a migraine. I'm not quite sure how I made it out of the movie. So my first couple attempts at this were not great. However, this film deserves my full attention, so that's why I'm back here doing it again. I did really enjoy this film. If you have seen the first one, this one, there will be some spoilers, but I'm assuming anyone who is watching this has already read the book or seen the first movie or whatever. Hopefully this will bring in new fans to the, I don't want to call it a franchise, but the IP at least. And it's a weird IP because I think that studios have been for 50 years looking for the next Star Wars, the next Star Trek. And Dune has all the capabilities. It's got everything you're looking for. It's sci-fi. It's grand. It's got novels. It's got history. It's got characters. It's got superpowers. It's got monsters. It's got everything you could potentially be looking for. However, I think at its heart, in where I think the novel stands the test of time is it's philosophical. It is a study of people and culture, and it's not just crazy laser sword fights and that sort of thing. Nothing wrong with that, of course, right? I love that sort of thing. I think we've seen a lot of franchises, would-be franchises, from Valerian in the City of 1,000 Planets or whatever, all that stuff, Elysium, even Riddick to a degree, like all those have tried to create a new IP and have failed. I don't know why Dune doesn't make it more into the cultural zeitgeist other than just retelling this one story. But I think maybe what we see in the second half of this film explains why that is. So it starts out, as I said, right from where the first one left off, with Timothée Chalamet playing Paul Atreides, and him and his mother Jessica going into the desert to live with the Fremen. And I think where this really works is that beginning the guerrilla warfare, that sort of Red Dawn aspect of it, is we see him becoming a Fedaykin and becoming one of the Fremen people, and can he be accepted? And I love the fact that the Fremen are a fully realized people, right? This isn't just Paul Atreides' story. This is also the story of the Fremen and of the planet. And that's where the novel is so fantastic. And the other movie and the other attempts at telling this story have kind of fallen apart. That this makes it more like the Fremen are people living in a brutal planet. They fight that way. They are very, don't share your water. You cannot cry. Culturally, obviously, there's some very overt allusions to Islam and being Muslim and the sense of otherness and the holy war, not call it a jihad, but just about. And so, Paul and his mother, who are the white folks in this, right, come into this culture of people with darker skin, sort of that other that we would normally look at. But now Paul and his mother are the outsiders, and can they fit in, and what do they have to do to fit in? I do think I would have liked a little bit more of him learning the culture, instead of the big jumps it sort of takes from his first raid to then all of a sudden it's, we've been successful over dozens of raids, and his name is now known to the emperor, and then he's, destroying entire convoys of spice, harvesting, and then he's riding the worm. But the heartfelt moments, the big moments of him getting his name, getting the Muad'Dib name, and struggling with, hey, I don't want to be the Lisan El Gaib, right? He doesn't want to be the prophet, but then his mother is trying to make him that. And is she working for herself or the Bene Gesserits or for him? Or, you know, what is everybody's motivation? The pure people in this are the Fremen. And what I always have found interesting is, like I said, that allusion to the Muslim faith. And it's kind of a bold idea that we're willing to promote them as the ones to look forward to, as the heroic figures, because I don't know that necessarily Paul is that. And as they're trying to accept him, as he is starting to take over, we learn that, you know, they have been lied to and they've been manipulated, but they're going to unleash this plague of holy war across the planet. The actual filmmaking of this, I'm sorry, and going back to the Fremen people, the language and the culture is fantastic. Like, just the way they carry themselves. I have some questions though, because they have all these high technology devices. Where are they coming from? We see them almost primitive. If the worms are drawn to the rhythms of machines, then how would they be able to develop this technology to create the thumpers and everything, like the still suits, all that sort of thing? That I don't quite understand. I also like how in the first film, it's like, you can't go outside because it's so hot, you will die. And yet in this one, they're kind of like, we're just going to be in the desert all the time. Like, day or night, doesn't matter. We're going to forget about the rest of that. That kind of fell a little bit for me. And then the idea of the sandwalk, super cool. I understand the mechanics of it. You can't have that going out through an entire film. But like I said, I think the moments of Paul learning to ride the sandworm, Paul starting to become the prophet that he has been foretold to become, I think that those are big, important moments that we feel emotion with. However, I think as we get to like the latter half of this film, it does start to drag a little bit, does start to fall apart. There's a lot of stuff that we can explain in text and in the novel, you know, we understand, but in this, we don't quite see. As Jessica becomes the Reverend Mother, as she ingests the water of life and it changes the baby inside her, that is all explained in the novel. It's not quite explained here. That all stays very kind of mysterious and esoteric. I believe I used that word already, so I apologize. But it kind of loses its steam a little bit, and it does start to drag. My 14-year-old kind of fell asleep, actually did fall asleep at the end of this film, which is absolutely crazy because that's when things are finally starting to happen. But I felt like that final battle, by the time we get there, we kind of just want it to be over, and we were starting to lose it a little bit. They could have done more with the sandworms as they're riding the worms into battle. And again, sorry for the spoilers. Maybe a little bit more with the storm. I don't know. I love the battle scenes in this. The Fremen are as I said, it's a brutal life, and they fight that way. It's vicious, and it is to the point. There aren't long drawn out sword or knife fights. When people get shot, they get shot and they're dead. That's it. There's a couple moments, I think, especially toward the end, where Gurney Halleck has come back and he's going after Rabban, and he kind of, chases up to him. And we've followed Rabban now for, 5 hours of this movie. And he just kind of gets stabbed in the neck and then he's dead, right? Then there's a few killings like that happen, I think, maybe a little bit too quickly. I don't want every single death in this movie to be drawn out. But if we build up the Baron, right, these are deaths that maybe could have had a little more drama to them. I think the most important in that vein is Feyd-Rautha, who has a brilliant introduction. He's on the Harkonnen world, and we see him fighting in the arena, and it's black and white, and then there's fireworks because it's his birthday, but the fireworks are like these ink blots in the sky because it is all black and white. And then you see him kind of in color, and you hear a little bit about the Bene Gesserits, and is he the anti-Paul? Is he, well, that's strange to say. Is he he's the nemesis. He could potentially be the Kwisatz Haderach. But maybe not, because we, at this point, we know obviously it's going to be Paul. I think by the time he gets introduced into the story, it's a little bit too late, and the impact that he could have had on the story should have been a little bit better. I think Austin Butler was okay, but not necessarily. He was creepy, but not necessarily having the charisma that he needed to stand up against Timothée Chalamet or whatever. So, those are my basic thoughts. It's a brilliant film, incredibly artistic. It's beautiful. You can see the French influences. Some of the scenes in this look like they're out of a Mobius strip or a painting. Absolutely brilliant. I hope that this really gets traction. It does set up that there could be a third one. I mean, walking out of the theater, we were all kind of like, hey, we want to see what happens next. We want to see that holy war. We want to see Paul actually become the emperor. But I know that as the books continue, they jump hundreds and thousands of years in the future. So Paul becomes actually a relatively small part of the overall narrative. So anyway, see it, stream it, or skip it. I would say if you've seen the first one, obviously see this, right? Like, it's just as good or better, even though there are some long stretches where it's kind of unfortunately dull. But if you're a fan of the franchise or the IP, it's well worth it. Stream it. The idea of seeing this at home where you could take a break if you need to, I think that's a great. If you didn't enjoy the first film or haven't seen the first film, then skip it until, if you have an interest, you can see them all together. So anyway, thank you for the re-record. I appreciate everyone who has stuck through, and I do. I appreciate all the views and all the comments and everything. So please let me know what you think below. Hit that like, share, subscribe, and I will see you all after the next movie, which actually is going to be Dune 2 again, because I'm going with friends in a couple of days. So we'll see if I still feel the same. All right, thanks. Bye.